Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. This is Culture Uncut. I am your host, Jason Spears, and Colt fans, we've got a lot to talk about. This is Culture Uncut. I'm your host, Jason Spears. Didn't expect to be back so quickly with another show, and this one will probably not be a very long one, but the news broke today that Trey Hendrickson, defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals, an all-pro defensive end and second in Defensive Player in the Year voting this year, has been given permission to seek a trade. And I think that is very big news because I think the Colts are a team that many people wouldn't think should or would be an option for him, but I think is the perfect option, and I'm going to explain why in a second. Also, Raekwon Davis finally was released to create, I think, about $6.5 million, $7 million in cap space, which is a good start. I still think if Braden Smith does not restructure or refuses to restructure his deal, he could be released. I think it's possible, Samson Ebukam could be released, although based on what Chris Ballard said, not likely. I've said this 1,000 times. The guy is coming off the Achilles injury, and he's on his last year of his deal. And it would save money to go after younger players and pay younger players that aren't coming off significant injuries or in the last year of a deal. There's Tyquan Lewis. You could cut him. I thought he was pretty solid last year. I'll get into all the machinations of the roster and the defensive line and whatnot in a second here. But I just wanted to say Raekwon Davis was one of the most just disastrous free agent signings in terms of we signed him to a 2-year, $14 million deal. He came in out of shape with high blood pressure, and I'm not trying to make light of that because high blood pressure is very serious. But it just was never going to work here. It got off to a horrible start. He was, out of shape, dealing with that, and he came into training camp, and he was just awful all year. I looked at his stats on PFF, and PFF, again, is a useful tool. It's not the end-all, be-all, but my eye test, when I saw him play and watched tape, he was awful. He did really nothing well. He was pretty poor overall in every way. He graded out, as far as defensive tackles, there were 219 graded. He was 202nd, and we were paying $7 million for that production, and that's simply not good enough. So obviously the cut makes sense. Again, I mentioned some options, as far as money saving. There's always restructures. There's always, guys you could release again. Braden, if he doesn't restructure. I would really like to keep Braden to solidify the right side of the line, but he can't be kept at the number we have him at now. He's been too injury prone, and with everything that's gone on at the end of last year, I'm not sure how dependable. And I'm not making light of this, but it's just you when you're paying somebody, they have to be dependable, and I don't know how dependable he is at this point. I don't know. We'll have to see, but I think he's a prime restructure guy. And then obviously the two defensive ends, I think you'll keep one of them. I would rather keep Tyquan. Quiddy, I'll mention in a minute. One of Quiddy, Tyquan, and Samson is going to be gone, I think, in my opinion, if we're going to make the Trey Hendrickson thing work. So those are my thoughts on Raekwon Davis. Now let's get into Trey Hendrickson. First and foremost, I'm one of the people that every time somebody's like, oh, let's get this guy, like every guy that's released or whatever, and Colt fans want to go pick him up, and there really never fits. And I'm 95% of the time like, no, just no. This is the rare case where I'm all in on this. And let me explain to you why. I know the age, okay? And I know the risk. everybody, when you're dealing with people that are, 30 and above, there's risk, but there's always risk. It doesn't really matter because it's football and it's not a contact sport, it's a collision sport, and people get injured all the time. I will say that there are defensive ends that play well into their 30s and are still impact players. And I think Trey is skewing that way because he's had his best 2 years in his career, his last two. 17.5 sacks in 2023, 17.5 sacks in 2024. That's 35 sacks in 2 years, and 2 Pro Bowl nods that didn't have to be begged for like some players' Pro Bowl nods, and also All-Pro. All-Pro is not easy to get with as good as so many damn good edge rushers. He was an All-Pro this year, and he was second in Defensive Player of the Year, and that's pretty impressive when you're talking about a guy that played on a defense that had nothing else on it. That means every team was locked into slowing him down, and somehow he still got 17.5 sacks. So, let me break down Trey Hendrickson, all right? First and foremost, he's 30 years old. He will not be 31 until December 5th. That's pretty much near the end of next season. Somebody asked me on Twitter, why would he want to come to the Colts? My question back to him would be, why not? Trey Hendrickson with Lou Anarumo as his defensive coordinator. I'm giving you his stats. He's been in the year 8 years. He's with the Saints for 4. Didn't make the Pro Bowl any of those years. He was with Lou, and that was Dennis Allen. Now he was with Lou for 4 years. 4 years with Lou. Let's listen to these stats. 4 years, 4-time Pro Bowler, 57 sacks, 35 in his past 2, 17.5, as I mentioned, each season. 112 quarterback hits, 71 tackles for loss, 11 forced fumbles, 12 passes defended. Now, that sounds like you think he's probably in coverage. No, that's him knocking down passes at the line of scrimmage. Those are basically the things that usually happen to us. Players knock down passes. Well, Trey Hendrickson is as good as it gets at that, and you put him next to DeForest or Grow. It doesn't really matter. Our D-line would be so good with Trey in it. Like, DeForest would get more one-on-ones. Latu would get more one-on-ones. Just great production. But on top of all of that production, in 68 games, he's played in 65. He's only missed 3 games. That's in his 4 years with Lou Anarumo. That's why he would want to come to Indianapolis. He wants to play with a guy who's gotten the best out of him. He loves Coach Lou Anarumo. He plays his best with him. It would turn our defense, because look, defense comes down to pressure. If you've got guys on your defensive line that can pressure the quarterback, that is the bottom line. Now, he's due $15 million this year. Obviously, this trade that he's asking for is going to come with the caveat of they're going to restructure the deal. They're going to add on years. Somebody asked me how many years I'd be willing to go for him. I'd give him an extension of 2 or 3 more years. I would. I think he's playing, and he's in his prime. He's playing his best football. I don't know what that looks like as far as price goes, but look, we've been cheap enough. We need to make this move. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you have to try to do something different than what we've been doing as an organization, and this is the perfect guy. There's really no drawback. Yes, you can say age, but he was 29 and 30 the last 2 years, and he had 17.5 sacks. So I don't think at 31 he's going to be that much different than 30, and honestly 32 I don't think he'll be that much different than 31. So I'm all in on this. You give Lou a guy he's familiar with. Now, what is it going to cost? Well, here's the thing about Cincinnati that I've known for a very long time, since Mike Brown has been in charge there, and this goes back to the 80s. He is very cheap, okay? So he's going to want cheap, controllable talent. So it's going to be draft picks and maybe a guy like Kwity Paye in a third. I was talking to my guy Trey today. That's an option. You have to see what they want. I'm not going first, and I'm not going second. But maybe a third this year and a third next year. But that can be negotiated. This is a top tier player. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league. You've got to be aggressive, and you have to go after him. I would be on the phone with I'd have Lou on the phone with Trey. I'd have Ballard on the phone with Trey. I'd have our cap guy on the phone with Trey yesterday, as soon as that was announced, because if you get this guy, you put him and Latu on the edge. You keep, let's say they keep, Pay and Taekwon. Then you've got really two really good pass rushers and 4 really good ends. Like, as far as good, I mean, like, for backups. Like, Pay as a backup would be really solid. Pay in the run game is really solid. Taekwon's really solid. And then you release Sampson, you save some money, let him go somewhere else. Bam, you've got your 4 major edge rushers. Maybe you draft a guy, a toolsy guy later in the draft, and you got 5. I think Isaiah Land is still on the roster. I'm not positive, but maybe you go out and sign a cheap, 5th option, or maybe you go draft a guy later in the draft that has, that's an athletic freak or whatever. Or we still have Aid. Adewambe. I can't say his name. He can play some edge too. You can move him outside like they did Dio. You can use him like you used Dio. Move him outside, move him inside, whatever. Maybe he's the 5th guy, right? And then you can use the draft to maybe get some young defensive tackles in here, or you can maybe go out in free agency and maybe get a guy on a 1-year deal to come in and back up our 2 interior guys. But this is huge, man. This, to me, is going to show you whether or not Chris Ballard is serious. Because this is a guy that I'm sure, yes, he wants to compete and he wants to win, but he also wants to get paid and play where he knows he can play his best. Because it's not only about, there's so many levels to this. It's about winning, obviously, but it's also about, showing what you can do and being the best player you can be in your career. And Lou Anarumo has gotten the best out of Trey. Not Dennis Allen, who is a great coach, but Lou Anarumo. So you bring this guy in, he immediately is an impact player. He's immediately somebody that the young players can look to get better because he's done it at a high level at the edge position. And he knows the defense. He can help the younger players with the defense because he's played in it for 4 years. And I'm sure not only does he know, the edge position, he probably knows all the D-line positions and maybe the whole damn defense. He probably does. So that's the guy. They've released all these players. This is the guy. This was the guy that I hoped they'd release. And now you're like, well, they must know something. Why are they releasing him? I'll tell you why they're releasing him. Because Mike Brown is cheap, and they have to pay T. Higgins, and he's on, I think they got him on the franchise tag. You're going to have to extend him, and you're going to have to extend Chase. You especially can't let Chase walk. So you're going to have to pay him, and receivers don't come cheap, and your quarterback, who you're paying all this money to, is going to want both of those guys back. I'm sure he loves Trey Hendrickson and wanted him back too, but he also wants his 2 top receivers back so he can get him the damn ball. Because Joe Burrow, he's going to want his guys. Those are the guys he's comfortable with, and you're going to have to pay him a ton of money. So that's the reason. My only concern here is there's going to be a lot of competition. You know how Ballard is always second in competition. Daniil Hunter and all kinds of other guys, examples over the years. And I definitely think if Cincinnati has their choice, they're going to want to trade him to the NFC. But again, Mike Brown is kind of a different kind of owner. He doesn't. It's about with this roster. It's about controllable talent that you don't have to pay. So I would be willing to negotiate like picks, maybe give them a player, but the Colts have to be super aggressive and have to be willing to go a little further maybe than somebody else just to get this guy. I just think it's the right time to do it. I think it'll help because if we actually have a good defense, that takes so much pressure off of our offense. We've had a horrific defense since AR's been here. Horrendous in every way, except takeaways. And part of that was because the offense, kept them on the field. But I just think that having a dependable defense will make it a little easier for the Colts to maybe try not to force things and get crazy, because they know that they can, their defense can go out there and take care of business, force turnovers, get to the quarterback, whatever. I just think I love what they've done with the coaching staff on defense, and I like all these coaches they've got. I like the secondary guy. I feel like we have an opportunity to be a really good defense in this next coming year, but you've got to make the changes and you've got to take the risks. And this is the one that you got to make. This is the trade you got to make. And just think about Hendrickson, Buckner, Grover, and young Latu, and then, Tyquan coming in, and, whether it's Pay or we keep Sampson or a young player or Aid or whoever, we have the capability of having a top 5 defensive line, I think. I really believe that. And if you add a coverage linebacker like Dre Greenlaw or Campbell out of Alabama, then your front seven is legit. That's a legit front seven. And then, maybe you draft Malachi Starks or Xavier Watts or Andrew Makuba, who I like, or Mabuka. I always mess these names up, but one of those guys, or the kid from South Carolina, or whatever. The defense starts to look totally different. Maybe you package Juju Brents, because I don't think he really fits this defense. He's a cover 3 guy, and this has more man and cover 1 in it. Maybe you package him along with, because I don't know how good the Bengals corners are. I know they weren't good last year, and they just got rid of Mike Hilton. Maybe you package a third in Juju Brents. I mean, there's a lot of options, but the key is getting in early and getting in that dialogue so that the Colts can get this done. Do I think it's going to happen? No, but I wanted to make a video about it because I think this is something that would show the Colt fans that Chris Ballard is serious about trying to win this friggin' division this year and not just let everybody else around him, add great players and just let the Colts, stick in the mud with we like our guys that have won absolutely nothing in the last, 6 years, 7 years. Things need to change. His approach needs to change. There are some guys that are worth making that effort for, and I think this is the guy. I think we have young, controllable players that you could trade. Again, Juju, really good coming out of college, hasn't stayed healthy, but played pretty well when he was on the field. I wouldn't mind that trade. He doesn't fit our defense. Package him in a third and get it done, man, and then sign Trey to an extension and do what you got to do. If you've got to cut some guys, cut them. Because I'm taking production over injuries and non-production any day of the week. So I wanted to jump on. Damn, been on here 17 minutes. I didn't think I'd be on this long. Before I go, I wanted to mention I saw Evan Ingram released by the Jags. I would look at him. I would still look at him as an option, as a veteran option. Guy like, because I think I like his, middle of the field stuff. He's had some up and down years. But if he wouldn't cost too much, I wouldn't be against it. Again, I still think a young tight end and a vet tight end would be good. We need to add 2 tight ends. I think we need to add a young guy and a vet, and I think the vet has to be somebody that's been in the league for a while. That's proven that they are a good player, an Ertz type player, a guy like Evan Ingram who's had some really good years. I think would really help our young tight end room. So I wouldn't be against that, but that's on the back burner for me. Right now, this Trey Hendrickson deal is something the Colts have to get on and really focus on it, figure out what Cincinnati wants, try to figure out a way to make it work, and whatever has to be done, get it done, get this guy in here. Let DeForest Buckner have a chance to have some one-on-ones. Let Latu have a chance to have some one-on-ones. Let Grover have a chance to have some one-on-ones because this guy is a game wrecker. We haven't had one since Robert Mathis. I think that was 2014 when he had, 19 and a half sacks when he was rushing from the outside, off the edge and not from defensive end, from outside linebacker. And this guy, defensive end, man, he's a He's a technician. He's physical. He's big. Different style than we're used to from like Freeney and Mathis and those guys, but he gets the job done. And look, I love this guy. I wanted him here. I want him here. We really should have looked at him 4 years ago, but we didn't because Chris Ballard. You got a chance to right a few wrongs here and make our fan base believe you actually give a crap about us getting better and making improvements. This is the guy. Go after him. Show you're serious. Show us early that you're serious, and let's get this done because it can be done. We can get this guy. No excuses. Ballard's got to get this situation fixed, and he's got to get this player. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, but I wanted to come on and throw my defense out because I've seen a lot of people say they don't want to do this because of the age. Look, man, he's in his prime, 17.5 sacks the last 2 years. He's done his best work with Lou. He's still playing at an uber high level, all pro this year. Do it. Make the deal. It's not like 2015 when we're signing a bunch of 38-year-old guys. This guy's 30 years old. Okay, it's one player. Get him to Indy. Get him on West 56. Get him in that D-line room. Let's friggin' turn this team around, man. Let's become an exciting team. Let's add some new blood. I want something to be excited about. I'm probably getting myself excited about something that's never going to happen. But hey, I got to take my wins where I can get them. And just the opportunity to get this guy, which I didn't think was going to happen, it's now here. So let's go get him, Chris Ballard. So with that, that's all I got, guys. A little longer than I thought. Apologize for that, but I'm pretty passionate about this one. I really want to go out and get this player. Let me know in the comments what you think of Trey Hendrickson, what your thoughts are on attaining him, and what you would be willing to part with. Do you think it would be a good move, or are you happy with what we have already and don't really want to go after a guy that's already 30 years old, considering where the team is? I understand both sides of it, but I'm tired of sitting back and waiting. I want to make a move. And if you're going to make a move, why not do it for a guy that's had 35 sacks in the last 2 years? So with that, like I said, I'm going to wrap it up. Leave your comments in the comment section. I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. Thoughts on Evan Ingram, thoughts on cutting Raekwon, whatever you want to leave. I love hearing from you guys. Appreciate the support as always. I will be back soon. Man, things happen quick. Free agency's on the way. I think it starts the 12th. Once that kicks off, it's going to be hot and heavy in the first 48 hours. You guys know how that goes. Usually not for us, but a lot of things happen around the league, and I'm excited to see if the Colts do anything different this year. So I hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend, and I will talk to you all soon. This has been Culture Uncut with your host, Jason Spears. I'm out.